I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make individual Halloween cheesecakes, and this is what they look like. Aren't these too cute? On the bottom we have chocolate cookie crumbs, and then you have the cheesecake filling, and then on the top this really cool looking chocolate cobweb. So the first thing you need to do is to preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 150 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a 12-cup muffin pan or cupcake pan. I do like to line the muffin cups with paper liners. It makes it so much easier to get the little cheesecakes out of the pan. And then the first thing we're going to do is our crust. And so I'm just doing this by hand in a bowl. You will need 1 cup, which is 100 grams of, now you can either use chocolate graham cracker crumbs or you can use chocolate wafer crumbs. Today I'm using actually the chocolate graham cracker crumbs. And so you will need, for about a cup, it's about 6.5 of these graham crackers. And then you can kind of get them into crumbs a couple of ways. One, you could just put them in your food processor and do it that way. But if you don't have a food processor, I just put it in a plastic bag, and then I just take my rolling pin and I just bang them like that. But I've already done that, so you don't have to watch me do that. But that's how I make my crumbs. And then put that in a bowl. And then we will need some butter, melted butter, to kind of bind all your crumbs together. Now it depends on a lot of times how much butter you need depends on how fresh your cookie crumbs are. So I would say between 4 and 5 tablespoons of melted butter, so that's about 55 to 65 grams. And I'm going to add like maybe about 4, because if you add well, of course, if you don't add enough butter, your crumbs will fall apart. If you add too much, it'll be kind of too wet. So that's why you want to just add part of it and then check it. I think I'm going to have to add a little more. Obviously, if your graham crackers were a little older, they would be drier, so you need a little more butter. Okay, that looks. And you know that you've got enough when you just take some in your hand and it'll hold together. Wash my hand out there. Sorry about that. And I'm just going to add just a touch more. Okay, and that'll be good. Now I'm just going to set the crumbs in. There's a couple ways you can set the graham cracker crumbs. One's in the oven and the other is just in the fridge, because you don't really need to bake these. So I'm just going to set the crumbs in the fridge. So what first you got to do is you want about a tablespoon, like a heaping tablespoon of crumbs in the bottom of each one. And then what I do is you just want to press that down. I just use my tablespoon to just kind of press it in an even layer, like so, just to compact that. And let's do that for all of them. I've done all that. So now what I'm going to do is just cover it with some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge. And then when we come back, we will make our cheesecake filling. So now for our cheesecake filling. If you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer, or really you could just do it in a large bowl with a wooden spoon. So the first thing you will need is 2 8-ounce packages, which is 1 pound, 450 grams. And I like to use a full fat cream cheese. And then have that at room temperature. Just put that in there. And then I'm just going to beat that on like medium speed, just until it gets nice and smooth and creamy. looks good. You don't want to have your mixer on like high speed because, if you've ever had cheesecake before, it's quite dense in texture. So we don't want to beat a lot of air into our batter. So that's why you don't want to have your mixer on too fast of a speed because then you'll beat too much air in. So just keep that in mind when you're making cheesecake batters. So now what you want to do is add 2/3 of a cup, which is 135 grams of granulated white sugar. And then for flavoring, I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. And then I'm just going to beat that on medium speed just to get everything all mixed together and it's nice and creamy and smooth. Looks good. Everything's all mixed together. There's no lumps. The important thing too is you want to get all those lumps out of the cream cheese. So that's why you must beat it enough to do that. And next, we are going to add 2 large eggs. Have your eggs at room temperature. They will mix in way better if they're at room temperature. And that would be, if you want to do it by weight, that would be 110 grams, like out of the shell. And then I'm just going to add 1 egg at a time, if I can do that, and mix that in, and then I'll add the second egg. Okay, looks good. Scrape down. As always, scrape the sides and bottom of your bowl as much as you need to get everything all mixed together. I'm just going to beat that just for a second. Okay, and our last ingredient. But if you want, I'm not going to today, if you wanted to kind of add a little bit of either lemon zest or orange or lime zest, you could do that right now. And we will also need to add 1/2 cup, which is 110 grams of sour cream. And again, have your sour cream at room temperature. It's going to make a really good cheesecake filling. Now, I will say, I'm not going, how rich you want your cheesecake, you could use the full fat cream cheese or sour cream. Or actually, I am using a light, like reduced fat sour cream. Now, don't use that fat-free stuff. But you could use a light, I think it's called. And I'm just going to mix that in. Okay, so as you can see, that is a pretty easy batter to make. Whoop. Noisy there. So now I'm just going to give it a quick stir just to make sure everything's all mixed together. Oh, gorgeous. Now, if there's a few lumps, don't worry about it. That's normal. So now what we want to do is just put it into our muffin cups. The cookie crumbs are now nice and chilled. Now, you could just use a ladle to do this. You could use a spoon, or I'm using an ice cream scoop. And you just want to put like the same amount in each one because we want them to all bake at the same length of time. So try to fill them with the same amount, like so. Okay, last one. And I just have a little extra in here. And then what I like to do is just take a spoon and kind of even it out a little. So there we have it. So now, I find these take somewhere between 18 and 20 minutes. You know, everyone's oven is a little different. You probably want to check them even a minute or two, like at maybe the 16, 17 minute, because we don't want to overbake them. So what we're looking for is they're set. But yet I find in the center, they may be just a little wet and wobbly. So that's kind of what you're looking for, but pretty set on top. Okay, so now our cheesecakes are done. So what you want to do is put your pan on a wire rack and then let these cheesecakes cool right down to room temperature. And then you want to put them in the refrigerator and let them chill until they're really firm. And then, so that will take probably, 3-4 hours. But really what I do is I put them in the fridge and let them chill overnight. And then the next day, I do the chocolate cobwebs, so you could also do it that way. But, so once these have chilled down, then we will come back and I will show you how to do those chocolate cobwebs. So now, what we're going to do is pipe our cobwebs on top. Now, you can either leave your cheesecakes like with the paper liner still on, and then pipe, or I usually like to take them off. So, either one, whichever you like. And then you will need, I'm just using a disposable piping bag with a really small, just plain round tip. You really don't need a tip. You could just clip off the end of your piping bag, or you could use just like a little Ziploc bag or a paper cone, whatever you have in the house. And then what I like to do, because the chocolate's quite thin, so I just take my bag and I twist it and kind of put the plastic into the tip, and that way it won't come out when I'm filling the bag. And then I like to just turn down the top and have a glass and go to the top like that. Makes it a little easier to do. And then you will need 1 ounce of dark chocolate, that's 30 grams, and you need to melt it. Now you can use, actually you could use a semi-sweet, you could use a bittersweet chocolate, you could use a white chocolate, a milk chocolate, whatever you want to do your cobwebs with. I'm using a semi-sweet here, and I just melted it in a little heat-proof bowl in the microwave. If you do it in the microwave, do it in short bursts, like maybe 15 seconds, take it out, stir it, put it back in maybe for 10, take it out, really stir it, because it seems to it doesn't melt and then boom, the chocolate melts, and you don't want to overheat it, and then it kind of seizes on you and gets too thick. So that's what you're looking for. Or you could do it in a heat-proof bowl over a saucepan of simmering water if you want to melt your chocolate that way. And then I just dump it in here. And then we're going to pipe our chocolate. Really, you can make your cobwebs any way you want. I'm doing it kind of, I guess you could say like a starburst or an asterisk. I'll do the lines, I'll show you how I do it, and then you can go from there. So, press that down. Then when you get it down to the bottom, this is going to be tends to come out the bottom, then I'll let it go, and so I put it over a cloth just in case. Then when you get it down, then kind of twist it. It starts to come out, okay? If you want to practice, you could just practice on your paper towel there. So what I do is just make a line, say that way, and then like so. And then I just connect them all up. And then I'll put another one in there. And there you have your cobweb design. Now, if you just let that sit, because our cheesecakes are really cold, that chocolate will harden pretty quickly. And then, if you're kind of sloppy, sometimes I am, I can just take a sharp edge and I don't know whether and I can just kind of peel off that chocolate once it hardens up. Or you could put it in the fridge and just let the chocolate harden, and then you can kind of, although it doesn't have to be perfect. But that's kind of, I think that looks so cute. What a great thing to have for Halloween. Kids like it, but adults, if you're having some people over for supper, wouldn't that be cute to serve that? So let's try one. I'm actually going to try just a plain one because I want to keep those. I really like that combination. You got the graininess of the cookie crumb, the graham cracker crumb crust. It's a little chocolatey. It's not too strong of chocolate. And then, of course, cheesecake. If you like cheesecake, you're going to love these. Nice. It's got a little bit of tang, sweet, fantastic. And the great thing about this is cheesecakes, you can make them several days ahead of time. So if you're having a party or something, you can make those ahead, have them in the fridge, and then you just pull out. Or you can even freeze them. Now, if you want to freeze them, I wouldn't freeze them with that chocolate cobweb on top, because then it tends to separate when they from the cheesecake when they freeze. So try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.